In 36 days, nearly 7,000 Marines died on an island smaller than Manhattan. In the frozen mountains of North Korea, 20,000 Marines fought their way through 100,000 Chinese soldiers in minus 40-degree weather. In the streets of an Iraqi city, Marines fought house to house in combat so intense it rivaled the worst urban battles of World War II. These aren't just statistics. These are the stories of the deadliest battles the United States Marine Corps has ever fought. Battles where the odds were impossible, where survival was a miracle, and where ordinary men became legends. Today, using cutting-edge artificial intelligence and historical records, we're bringing these battles back to life, showing you exactly what these Marines faced, what they endured, and why their sacrifice can never be forgotten. The United States Marine Corps has a reputation unlike any other military force in American history. Since its founding in 1775, Marines have been the first to fight, the tip of the spear in America's most dangerous operations. But that distinction comes at a terrible cost. Marines specialize in amphibious assault, storming enemy beaches under fire, fighting through defended positions, and holding ground at any cost. This mission has led them into some of the most brutal combat in military history. The battles we're about to explore aren't just famous, they're infamous. They represent the absolute limit of human endurance. Combat so intense that military historians struggle to find adequate words to describe it. We've selected 5 battles based on 3 criteria: casualty rate relative to forces engaged, and historical significance. Each battle tells a different story, but they all share common threads. Marines fighting against overwhelming odds, in conditions that would break most men, refusing to retreat even when defeat seemed certain. Using artificial intelligence trained on thousands of historical photographs, combat reports, and veteran testimonies, we can now visualize these battles in ways never before possible. What you're about to see combines archival footage with AI reconstruction, giving us the most accurate picture yet of what these Marines actually experienced. A warning: these stories are not easy. They involve graphic descriptions of combat and casualties, but they deserve to be told, because these Marines, many of them teenagers, fought and died defending something larger than themselves. Let's begin with the battle that produced the most iconic image in Marine Corps history. February 19th, 1945. 70,000 U.S. Marines prepare to storm an 8-square-mile volcanic island 750 miles south of Tokyo. Their objective: capture Iwo Jima's airfields to support the final assault on Japan. The Marines had no idea they were about to fight the bloodiest battle in Corps history. Iwo Jima was defended by 22,000 Japanese troops under Lieutenant General Tadamaki Kurabayashi, one of Japan's most brilliant tactical commanders. Kurabayashi knew he couldn't stop the American landing, so he designed something worse: a killing machine. Over 18 miles of tunnels connected 1,100 pillboxes, bunkers, and gun positions carved deep into volcanic rock. The entire island had been transformed into an underground fortress designed for one purpose: to make the Americans pay in blood for every yard. When the Marines hit the beach at 9 a.m., they encountered something unexpected. Silence. No fire. No resistance. Just black volcanic ash so deep that men sank to their knees with every step. Japanese artillery, mortars, and machine guns opened fire from hidden positions on Mount Suribachi and the high ground to the north. Marines were caught in a crossfire with nowhere to hide. The black sand absorbed explosions but provided no cover. Men were torn apart by shrapnel. Landing craft burned in the surf. In AI-recreated scenes based on combat photographs and veteran testimonies, we can see what those first minutes looked like. Marines struggling through the ash, dragging wounded comrades, trying desperately to move off the killing ground while Japanese guns tore into them from positions they couldn't even see. The first day alone, 560 Marines killed or wounded, and that was just the beginning. The battle devolved into a nightmare of close-quarters combat. Flamethrowers clearing bunkers, Marines throwing grenades into tunnels, hand-to-hand fighting in underground passages. Every position had to be taken individually, blasted with explosives, burned with napalm, or assaulted directly by men who knew most of them wouldn't survive. On February 23rd, a patrol from the 28th Marines reached the summit of Mount Suribachi and raised an American flag. The image, captured by photographer Joe Rosenthal, became the most famous photograph of World War II. But most Americans don't know what happened next. 3 of the 6 flag raisers were killed in action within days: Sergeant Michael Strank, Corporal Harlan Block, and Private First Class Franklin Sousley. Dead before they knew they'd created an iconic image. The fighting continued for 5 more weeks. Japanese defenders refused to surrender, fighting from caves and tunnels until they were killed or entombed alive. Marines faced banzai charges, ambushes, and infiltration attacks every night. One Marine battalion, the 1st Battalion, 26th Marines, took 103% casualties. They suffered more casualties than their total strength and still continued fighting, absorbing replacements and pressing forward. The final toll, 36 days of combat. 6,821 Marines killed. 19,217 wounded. 27 Marines awarded the Medal of Honor, more than in any other single battle in American history. Of the 22,000 Japanese defenders, only 216 were taken prisoner. The rest fought until killed. Admiral Chester Nimitz said it best: "Among the men who fought on Iwo Jima, uncommon valor was a common virtue." Even today, military historians debate whether Iwo Jima was worth the cost. But for the Marines who fought there, that question misses the point. They were given a mission, and they accomplished it, no matter the price. January 31st, 1968. Vietnam. The ancient imperial city of Hue, Vietnam's cultural heart, falls to 10,000 North Vietnamese and Viet Cong soldiers in a surprise Tet offensive attack. The U.S. command orders 2 understrength Marine battalions to take it back. Total Marine strength, fewer than 2,500 men. The city, 200,000 civilians, thick walls, centuries-old buildings, and an enemy force that outnumbers them 4 to 1. What followed was 26 days of the most intense urban combat since World War II. Modern American forces weren't trained for urban warfare. Vietnam was supposed to be a jungle war, search, and destroy missions in the countryside, not street-to-street fighting in a populated city. The Marines had to relearn lessons from Stalingrad and Manila on the fly, under fire, with no margin for error. The North Vietnamese had fortified every building. They'd positioned machine guns to cover every street. They'd stockpiled ammunition and supplies for a prolonged siege. And they were fighting for the propaganda value of holding Hue, which meant they wouldn't withdraw easily. Using AI to reconstruct combat based on battle damage photographs and after-action reports, we can see what this fighting looked like. Marines breaching walls with explosives because streets were death traps. Tanks firing point-blank into buildings. Close-quarters firefights where Americans and Vietnamese were separated by a single wall or floor. The fighting was so intense that Marine companies were reduced to 20 or 30 men within days. Reinforcements arrived and were cut down just as quickly. Wounded Marines couldn't be evacuated because landing zones were under constant fire. Lance Corporal Jim Duffy, who fought in Hue with 1st Battalion, 5th Marines, later recalled, "You'd be in a room and you'd hear Vietnamese voices on the other side of the wall. Sometimes you'd blast through and kill them. Sometimes they'd blast through first. It was 50-50 who died." One of the fiercest engagements occurred at the Citadel, the old Imperial Palace fortress in the northern part of the city. Thick walls, multiple defensive positions, and thousands of North Vietnamese soldiers made it nearly impenetrable. The 1st Battalion, 5th Marines assaulted the Citadel wall for 10 straight days. They advanced meters at a time, blasting holes in walls, clearing bunkers, fighting through gardens and courtyards. Casualties were horrific, more than 50% in most companies. On February 24th, Marines finally raised the American flag over the Imperial Palace. The battle wasn't over, but the symbolism was powerful. Marines don't quit. Marines don't accept defeat. The final toll, 147 Marines killed, 857 wounded, nearly 40% casualties in some battalions. But those numbers don't capture the psychological impact. Many Marines who fought at Hue suffered what we now recognize as PTSD. The close quarters violence, the constant death, the inability to distinguish enemy from civilian. It left scars that never fully healed. General Westmoreland later called Hue the most destructive urban combat since World War II. He wasn't exaggerating. Entire neighborhoods were destroyed. Thousands of civilians were killed, many executed by the communists. But for Marines, Hue proved something important. They could adapt, improvise, and overcome even the worst tactical situations. They went into an urban hell with no preparation and came out victorious. Staff Sergeant Ernest Spencer, who earned the Navy Cross at Hue, put it simply, "We were all just trying to survive, but we were Marines. We don't leave our dead behind. We don't quit. That's what kept us going." November 1950. Koreo. The 1st Marine Division, 15,000 men, advances north toward the Chosin Reservoir as part of the UN offensive to end the Korean War by Christmas. The temperature is dropping. Intelligence reports suggest minimal Chinese presence in the area. Both assumptions are catastrophically wrong. On the night of November 27th, in temperatures reaching -40 degrees Fahrenheit, 120,000 Chinese soldiers launch a massive surprise attack. The Marines are surrounded, outnumbered 8 to 1, 78 miles from the coast with a single narrow road as their only escape route. Most armies would have been annihilated. The Marines decided to attack in a different direction. The conditions at Chosin were beyond brutal. They were inhuman. Weapons froze and wouldn't fire. Morphine syrettes turned solid. Plasma bottles shattered. Rations were like blocks of ice. Men's hands froze to metal so quickly that touching your rifle with bare skin meant leaving flesh behind.
Frostbite casualty rivaled combat casualty.
Marines lost fingers, toes, ears, noses. Some men froze to death in their sleeping bags. Others lost consciousness and never woke up. And every night, the Chinese attacked. Using AI reconstruction based on after-action reports and survivor accounts, we can visualize what those nights looked like. Thousands of Chinese infantry advancing through snow, blowing bugles and whistles, overwhelming Marine positions through sheer numbers. Marines firing until their weapons jammed, then fighting hand-to-hand with knives, entrenching tools, and rifle butts. The most famous moment of the battle came when a reporter asked Major General Oliver P. Smith if the Marines were retreating. Smith's response became legendary. "Retreat, hell, we're not retreating, we're just advancing in a different direction." It wasn't bravado, it was accurate. The Marines weren't running. They were fighting their way out, destroying 7 Chinese divisions in the process. The breakout from Chosin took 13 days. 78 miles through mountain passes, with Chinese forces attacking from both sides, in conditions so cold that wounded men had to be stacked like cordwood in trucks because they froze solid. At Toktong Pass, which Marines nicknamed Hellfire Valley, Fox Company, 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines held a critical position against repeated Chinese assaults. For 5 days and nights, they fought off attacks by vastly superior forces, losing more than half their strength but never giving ground. When relief finally arrived, Fox Company Commander Captain William Barber, himself severely wounded, had kept his position. He received the Medal of Honor. So did several of his Marines, many posthumously. The final casualties from Chosin: 718 Marines killed in action, 192 missing in action, 3,485 wounded, 7,313 non-battle casualties, most from frostbite. But here's what's remarkable. The 1st Marine Division brought out all their dead, all their wounded, and all their equipment. They destroyed or captured all Chinese forces that engaged them, and they inflicted an estimated 35,000 Chinese casualties. One Chinese commander later said, "We learned that the American Marines were the finest soldiers we ever fought. They never knew when they were beaten." Colonel Louis Chesty Puller, the most decorated Marine in Corps history, summed it up differently. "We've been looking for the enemy for some time now. We've finally found him. We're surrounded." That simplifies things.